Hey kids, Phineas T. Walsh here. Welcome to the Fallout Shelter, the brand new children's show just for you. Well, kids, I mean. The rest of you can stay if you behave yourselves. Welcome to part 3 of our little reading of Alice's Adventures in Wonderland. In what has grown into a 5-part episode, we've been concentrating on Alice's adventures with the Griffin and the Mock Turtle. In parts 1 and 2, we read chapter 9. In parts 3, 4, and 5, we'll read chapter 10. Alice's Adventures in Wonderland was published in England in 1865, during a period of history known as the Victorian era. In 145 years, a lot has changed. What was then well known is now a history lesson. Little details in the book meant to amuse 19th century children mean very little, if anything, to you in the 21st century. You are going to need a few hints so you'll be amused too. For example, with the title of Chapter 10, The Lobster Quadrille, Lewis Carroll is poking fun at one of the more fashionable ballroom dances of the day. In the quadrille, refined behavior was everything. While gliding gracefully around the ballroom floor, dancers were expected to be polite and courteous. As you're about to find out, the Mock Turtle and Griffin are anything but polite or courteous in their version of the dance. Lewis Carroll loved to poke fun at proper Victorian behavior. He especially enjoyed making up new verses for popular songs and poems. There's another word for this, and it's called a parody. And chapter 10 is loaded with them. As a matter of fact, you're about to hear the Mock Turtle sing a parody based on a popular Victorian poem. But we'll talk more about that later, okay? At another time. You ready for this? Okay. Here we go. See you in the reading corner! Oh, I'm starting to enjoy that. It's like a roller coaster. Welcome back to the Reading Corner. Shall we begin? The Mock Turtle and the Griffin are getting ready to tell Alice something about the games. Chapter 10, The Lobster Quadrille. The Mock Turtle sighed deeply and drew the back of one flapper across his eyes. He looked at Alice and tried to speak, but for a minute or two, sobs choked his voice. Same as if he had a bone in his throat, said the Griffin, and it set to work shaking him and punching him in the back. At last, the Mock Turtle recovered his voice, and with tears running down his cheeks, he went on again. You may not have lived much under the sea. I haven't, said Alice. And perhaps you were never even introduced to a lobster. Alice began to say, I once tasted, but checked herself hastily and said, no, never. So you can have no idea what a delightful thing a lobster quadrille is. No, indeed, said Alice. What sort of dance is it? Why, said the Griffin, you first form a line along the seashore. Oh, 2 lines, cried the Mock Turtle. Seals, turtles, salmon, and so on. And when you've cleared all the jellyfish out of the way, that generally takes some time, interrupted the Griffin. You advance twice. Each with a lobster as a partner, cried the Griffin. Of course, the Mock Turtle said. Advance twice, set to partners. Change lobsters and retire in the same order, continued the Gryphon. Then, you know, the Mock Turtle went on, you throw the lobsters, shouted the Gryphon with a bound into the air, as far out to sea as you can. Swim after them, screamed the Gryphon. Turn a somersault in the sea, cried the Mock Turtle, capering wildly about. Change lobsters again, yelled the Gryphon at the top of his voice. Back to land again, and that saw the first figure, said the Mock Turtle, suddenly dropping his voice. And the two creatures, who had been jumping about like mad things all this time, sat down again very sadly and quietly and looked at poor Alice. Must have been a very pretty dance, said Alice timidly. Would you like to see a little of it? Said the Mock Turtle. Very much indeed, said Alice. Come, let's try the first figure, said the Mock Turtle to the Gryphon. We can do it without lobsters, you know. Oh, who shall sing? Oh, you sing, said the Gryphon. I've forgotten all the words. And so they began solemnly dancing round and round Alice, every now and then treading on her toes when they passed too close, and waving their forepaws to mark the time, while the Mock Turtle sang this very slowly and sadly. Will you walk a little faster, said the whiting to the snail. There's a porpoise close behind us, and he's treading on my tail. See how eagerly the lobsters and the turtles all advance. They are waiting on the shingle. Will you come and join the dance? Will you, won't you, will you, won't you, will you join the dance? Will you, won't you, will you, won't you join the dance? You can really have no notion how delightful it will be when they take us up and throw us with the lobsters out to sea. But the snail replied, too far, and gave a look askance. Said he thanked the whiting kindly, but he would not join the dance. Would not join the dance. Would not join the dance. What matters it how far we go? His scaly friend replied. There is another shore, you know, upon the other side. The further off from England, the nearer is to France. Then turn not pale, beloved snail, but come and join the dance. Will you, won't you, will you, won't you, will you join the dance? Will you, won't you, will you, won't you join the dance? Thank you. It's a very interesting dance to watch, said Alice, feeling very glad that it was over at last. And I do so like that curious song about the whiting. Oh, well, as to the whiting, said the Mock Turtle, you've seen them, of course. Well, that's all for part 3. Join us next time when Alice replies, yes, said Alice. I've often seen them at den. She checked herself hastily. From the Fallout Shelter, I'm Phineas T. Walsh. Be safe out there.